Hello, and welcome to another video. We'll cover madness and balance. In the top left, you'll see the set bonuses that I run. It's very much Gathering Storm from last expansion. Our stats are running 4 alacrity and the rest is critical. We're not running an alacrity AUG on this spec because it does a lot of channeling. And its global cooldowns are relatively not buggy, I guess you would say. Like they're a little bit more smooth compared to some other classes. I don't really notice any animation lag, and if I do, it's at most on Lightning Strike, which with Overload Strike, you don't really have that issue. So the gearing, you could also go like some mastery instead of all the critical that I have, but it's just easier for me to rip the critical out for alacrity in this case if I want to go lightning. Going into our talents, there's a lot of viable options here. The only one I probably wouldn't recommend really taking is removing the 15% DR. That's probably like the most important talent of all this. Everything else pretty much has a place. I mean, you probably want immersion, but I feel like there are some situations that you could actually just get away with not using it, though I don't recommend it. Going into our tacticals, Tempest of Rose is never one that I recommend, mostly because when you do the AoE Lightning Strike, if you have Creeping Terror on everybody, which you should, it'll proc on everybody. It's not just your main target, it'll proc on everybody, so you can get a lot of damage out Tempest of Rose if you're actually able to cast. Killing Field is also a nice one. If people are clumping a lot, you can get AoE Demolish. That feels really good. Then you also have Mystics, Ruthless Blade. This one is pretty good if you want to like focus a little bit more on single target and maybe dueling. It'll give you a lot of healing. Then Overwhelming Offense. This one is typically nice if you're not able to ever like cast and you have to just like tab dot and like try to cast a little bit. I would only recommend this in games where you've got to basically kite all the time and you don't really have a choice of actually casting on people. This will just give you more damage for your dots and allow you to do just a little extra damage. However, sometimes Mystic Ruthless Blade will probably be just better, but if you don't like using that, then Overwhelming Offense is the option. I don't like AoE Demolish personally because I never find a situation where it's useful, and in some games I don't find Tempest of Rose very applicable. So there would definitely be times where Overwhelming would be rather nice to have. So going into our main combo, we have Creeping Terror, Infliction, Force Lightning, then all of our off global cooldown abilities that increase our damage for Death Field. So your Death Field can hit pretty hard. It's also internal damage, so it's pretty nasty. And if you're running Mystics, Ruthless Blade, you can Leeching Strike, or what's it? Force Leech? I think it's Force Leech. And to Demolish into an instant Force Leech. If you're not running Mystic Ruthless, then just go into Demolish, completely ignore the Leech, and then go into Leech after Demolish. Then you've pretty much Force Lightning into Overloaded Strike. That'll be your main core, and just keep Force Lightning into Overloaded Strike over and over until your dots fall off or are about to fall off, and then reapply them and pretty much do the same thing that you just did all over again. It just continuously does this over and over. That's the class, or something special to it. And positioning is pretty much key. Sure, you can face tank, but as this class, you have a lot of choice of where you can be, where you can fight. Just like Lightning. Lightning is a little bit more stronger with roots, so you can just kite like crazy just by doing your normal rotation. Lightning kind of needs to get its Force Lightning off, and if it can't, because of bad positioning or whatever, it becomes a lot weaker. Definitely be more mindful. Also, do keep in mind your polarity is your strongest window. So if you can tie that with a white bar or something so that you can't get interrupted, that'd be very helpful because you can do a lot of damage in that window, much like Lightning. And then our abilities that we kind of like have off to the side is Shock. So you pretty much only use Shock if you're actually using the dot explosion. And then you have Force Lightning, and you pretty much only use this if people are really stacking hard. It'll give you some extra damage. You don't necessarily have to use it, but it is definitely an option. Let's say you're running Overwhelming Offense and you just happen to get into a cleave game. chances are Force Storm's probably going to be better than just spamming Lightning Strike because it's single target. Now, if you had Overloaded Strike, I think Overloaded Strike would still probably do more than Force Storm. So it's totally optional if you're for some reason to run like the Dot Explosion and it's a big cleave game. Maybe you want to think about using Force Storm for the AoE. Other than that, let's get into game real quick. That we are in game. As you'll see here, my Phase Walk is still on cooldown, but I'm going to show you guys something with it. I don't know if this still is a thing. It used to be a thing back in the day, but now I don't actually have a clue. I assume that it still is. You can hide basically the animation of your character actually phase walking, but I don't know if it actually still hides the thing that you put on the floor. It used to be able to hide the thing that you put on the floor, but it's hard telling because it always shows up there for you. So you can Resurgence into phase walk. People will still see the cast bar, but they'll see you use Resurgence instead. So you could basically get those off at the same time. The main reason why you would even do that in the first place is because it would make this invisible, so people couldn't actually see it. So they have no idea that you actually have your phase walk there, but they would see, obviously, with buffs that you have a phase walk. Not very useful, but that used to be a thing. And it's also, you know, an easy way to just get Resurgence off while you need to put a phase walk too. As it's an instant ability and the other one is a channeled, but you're able to use them both technically at the same time. One a little bit before, doesn't like the second one, which is a little weird to think about. They don't share the same global, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And other than that, we can show an example. So basically when you are Force Lightning, you want to make, or using Force Lightning, you basically want to make sure that you have your other two dots on there because that's what really makes the damage. So we've got Grief and Terror into Affliction and then Force Lightning. This is where the damage starts stacking. When you have all three of those things on at the same time, your Force Lightning will start doing a lot of damage. But for the most part, I'm going to show you the full rotation because it's just absolutely stupid silly. There's not much you have to think about. And then here, for example, Force Lightning gains lifesteal. So after using your Death Field, if you're able to actually cast this, this will actually heal you, which is really good. So if you're ever in need of a lot of healing, pop your bubble, percent heal, Resurgence, 3% armor, or 3% damage reduction gained from armor for using Resurgence. And then on top of that, you know, you would get your lifesteal from this, your dots, and Force Leech if you needed to. So for example, didn't mean to do that. Let's open our stat sheet. I'll show you the damage reduction because it's totally reasonable to be skeptical of this. So for example, we have 15.56. I use Resurgence, we go to 19.32. Basically, this is armor gain, and this is armor penetratable. So if somebody has a lot of armor pen, this Resurgence DR basically won't matter, but you know, it's there. Keeping up your Resurgence also keeps you healthy. It's very simple to do, helps with your relic procs, and at the same time, it heals a lot more efficiently than spamming Dark Heal. For example, Dark Heal still hits pretty much the same as it did back in 5.0, which is an absolute just travesty. I don't know why it still does that. I really miss Dark Infusion. It's part of the reason why I don't really like playing Historic anymore, even though I used to play it all the time. But other than that, this spec is probably one of the most simple things that you could ever play in this game. And it's all about actually fighting back. Like, sure, you can try to kite, but if you're kiting, you're not actually doing damage. You're kind of useless. There's no other word to say. So there are sometimes that somebody won't really do much damage to you, so it would be actually better for you to just cast back on them, especially if you have Resurgence and other things up or going at the same time. So I'm getting a lot of healing, and it's mostly just because I'm able to pop things like this. So let's just say we have all this, right? Look at all this healing that I'm getting. I'm not actually even taking damage. So you can even see the full value of the healing, but there's a lot of healing here, and it's just because I'm actually attacking back. If I'm not attacking back, a lot of this healing doesn't exist. I'm only getting the bubble healing and maybe the Resurgence. So that's one thing to think about. Obviously, with the DR talent here, this is like probably the most important talent, as I said before. I'll close it off with this one. I can kind of like show you how much DR you actually hit if you were to pay attention to keeping this up. So you have 30% DR. 30% DR is actually pretty good. Pretty good. It's almost a tank's amount of DR. This is what Deception Assassin gets with its DR talent, for example. Deception does have better internal and elemental damage reduction, but when you pop Resurgence, you're actually at Darkness level of damage reduction there with the 34%. But Darkness is just right at 34, 36, which is pretty nuts. And that's not with Suppression, which Suppression could make it go even further. You can also take this talent, make it go even further too. So you can be pretty tanky. Plus your healing, your self-healing is pretty good. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and if you want to see a different guide, feel free to leave that in the comments. I'll also have a whole bunch of other guides listed in the description, so feel free to check that out.